No, this is not the now long-promised Blake Lizotte episode, but he's going to be in it quite a bit. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Have you counted the centers who've been added to the depth chart over the past week? Have you attempted in that event to structure them as if, there was a hockey game being played at PPG Paints Arena tonight? There's a lot of them, and I'm not 100% sure how many of them will stay at the position, how many of them will stay on the roster. Do you remember when I reported, this was about a month ago, that internally the Penguins had been broaching the subject of Evgeny Malkin switching to the wing? And do you also remember that I expressed significant skepticism that this could occur because Gino is so natural at center that he's going to flow through the middle of the ice the same way he's done his entire life? Also, and really relevant to this, Mike Sullivan insists, and I mean 100%, that his wingers are really, really fast, even by NHL standards. He needs them to get on the puck, on the forecheck. That will not be Gino in his late 30s. However, I can assure you that the reporting was accurate, that it's at least been talked about in the Penguins world. So taking that, resharing it right now, and then kind of discarding it, I see a center depth position that goes Sidney Crosby, Gino, Lars Eller, Kevin Hayes, Blake Lizotte, Noel Acciari, lots of minor leaguers. Now, because you're not going to have 6 centers, because that would be kind of impossible, and since Kyle Dubas himself said at his press gathering after day one of free agency that he expects Hayes to be at center and he expects Acciari to go to the wing, you've now got a chart that shows Sid, Gino, Eller, and Hayes, and then you're sliding Lizotte in all likelihood to a wing. And actually, to be honest with you, I like a lot of what Lizotte brings, but I want him to be one of those Sullivan guys who gets in on the forecheck. He's a maniac. I don't want or need him to be arriving into the zone late. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. So we have 4, but do we? You can maneuver Eller and Hayes any which way you'd like. And I don't really know that there's all that much difference between a third line and a fourth line in the NHL anyway. Certainly not in the year 2024. I believe Eller was a highly effective player, as regular listeners can attest. I think a lot of the guy on and off the ice. Whereas Hayes is coming off what everyone, including Dubas himself the other day, could safely characterize as a deeply disappointing season in St. Louis. So is that too many centers? Can you cast Hayes as a fourth-line center? Would you rather have that be some sort of grunt-type role, in which case you'd rather have somebody else there? All right, if you do that, you slide Hayes up to third-line center and you trade Eller? Okay, well, I've also reported to you that the Penguins did try to trade Eller. Not sure why, but they did back at the most recent NHL deadline and were unsuccessful. They also tried to trade Riley Smith and were unsuccessful, but eventually found a suitor and or glutton in the Rangers just this past week. As I see it, if you move Eller out and you replace Eller with Hayes, you're downgrading at that position. You're downgrading in all 3 zones. So that doesn't make sense to me. You're also, by the way, putting this in parentheses, sending the message to Sidney Crosby that what you really valued out of the Hayes trade with the Blues was the second-round pick in 2025 you got, rather than the player, because you're going to have to take my word for it that Sid values Eller a lot as well. And let's not pretend this doesn't matter or shouldn't matter. He's Sid. So what did I resolve with this exercise? The answer is absolutely nothing. Really nothing. The first time I see Gino taking a shift on the wing in Cranberry, I'll be floored, even though I would have been the one who reported it. I will be knocked over on my chair. If Eller gets traded so that Hayes can be bumped up to third line center, I'll have something of a similar reaction. So I'm going to have to presume, based on the information that we have right now, based on things that were spoken, based on things that I found out behind the scenes, that this is being set up for Hayes to be your fourth line center, for Hayes to basically take on your Jeff Carter role. And if that's the case, and I don't have any problem with that per se, now count up the 4 winger spots on those bottom 2 lines and the 500 candidates they're going to have in camp for those 4 spots. Good. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Dom, who says, DK, if we can say that P.O. Joseph is skinny, as you did on the Wednesday episode, surely we can say that Marcus Pettersson is skinny too, right? Plus, P.O. is much faster. I know the defense isn't very exciting to talk about, but I think the Penguins need to do much better back there. Dom, P.O. is skinny just as Marcus is skinny. If you put them right next to each other, you wouldn't see much daylight in terms of the difference. You'd see plenty of daylight because they're both really thin. Marcus is about an inch taller, but it doesn't really factor that much into his game. He uses his reach well. P.O. has used his reach well. He's chipped in offensively. P.O. has chipped in offensively. And that is the beginning and the end of the comparisons. Pettersson turned himself this past season into the Penguins' single most consistent performer on the blue line. That is spoken with respect to Chris Letang and Erik Karlsson, who obviously are who they are and who were capable on more than a few nights of rising up to their own rarefied levels. But when you're talking about all 6 months of the season, Pettersson and only Pettersson was there from the beginning. Don't take it from me. Halfway through the season, Kyle Dubas said in an interview with one of the team broadcasters that the 2 most consistent players on the entire roster were Sidney Crosby and Marcus Pettersson. And that's coming from the guy who traded for Karlsson. And look, I get that one sentiment that'll never change among hockey fans, no matter how much the sport itself changes, will be that all defensemen should be big and tough and beating the living crap out of everybody, especially if they come to the front of the net. The game has changed a lot, including net front defense. Mike Sullivan is far from the only head coach who now insists on fronting the players, meaning getting between the puck and the player as opposed to between the player and the goaltender the way it was done for nearly a century. So a lot of that stuff has gone out the figurative window, and Marcus has fit really, really well. You said that P.O. is a faster skater than Marcus. I have no idea what you would base that on. To me, again, they look very, very similar in that regard. But the separator is the consistency, and within that consistency, the defensive consistency. Marcus was better than anybody on the team consistently in stopping rushes and turning them the other way, in shutting teams down at the Pittsburgh blue line and turning the puck the other way. And, by the way, in making the safe, smart passes to get out of the Pittsburgh zone. He and P.O. don't have that in common. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins, and we're going to do another one of these tomorrow.